Welcome to Leadership, the Secret Sauce, the podcast where we talk to extraordinary coaches and leaders to dive into the realms of leadership and coaching. We're your hosts, Dave Lipsky and Matt Dodson. So let's jump in with another guest and find out their answer to the question, what is your secret sauce? Oh, welcome. Before we begin, a quick shout out to our sponsor, Character Matters Coaching and Consulting, where they believe that your character is the compass guiding you through life's journey. Whether you're facing a personal or professional challenge, they are dedicated to helping you discover and strengthen the core values that define who you are. Dave, we have our special guest this episode. I'd like you to have a chance to introduce Nick and tell us a little bit about what we want to talk about.
We are excited to welcome Nick from the UK. And Matt and I started this podcast because we like to hang out with cool coaches and find out what their secret sauces are. And we're excited to have the conversation, learn more about you today. We like to start out with just an energy check-in on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being low, 10 being high. What is your energy level in the present moment?
Well, first of all, it's a pleasure to meet you both. I've heard a lot about you. I've obviously listened to the podcast, which I think are great, by the way. Congrats, both of you. With regards to my energy levels, I'd say between a 9 and a 10, actually. It's been a really good week. It's been a great day so far over here. I know we're in different time zones. And it's nearly the weekend. So, yeah, I'm feeling pretty good right now.
Very nice. Very nice. Is it happy hour yet in the UK?
Well, the pub's open at 11 o'clock and it's just gone 1 o'clock. So, yeah, it's all...
all the regulars. The regulars are there.
Yeah,
we'll have the accelerated podcast today then to get you out there. Matt, what's your energy level, Matt?
Oh man, well, you know what? I thought it was like, oh no, am I going to really get up to? I would say right now it's about a 9. So
very nice. I am actually, I'm coming a rising 8. Because I woke up this morning at a 5 and I was like, all right, my wife last night greeted me with this very nasal tone and said, don't kiss me, I'm sick. And I'm like, that's code for now you're sick. So, but enough about that. I'm a rising 8. I'll be at 10 by the end. Nick, when you are traveling and somebody next to you says, oh, hi, my name's David or Matt. Hello, Nick. What do you do? And how do you answer that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess that there's 2 ways to answer that. I guess there's the label that you would put against my name, which you'd see on something like LinkedIn, which is out there and kind of relates to the standard roles and responsibilities in the world today. And that's I've always been about creating and leading sales teams. My past has been leading sales teams for large multinational technology companies, namely Microsoft, Amazon, and Samsung. However, the way that I like to define what I do is the ability to unlock people's potential in order to maximize their performance, because that's a really key ingredient for sales teams and for life that I've always tried to think about and focus on. So yeah, I would say it's about unlocking people's potential.
Yeah, I the unlocking piece is really powerful. I can visualize it. And if somebody then said to you, I think I have more potential, how would you unlock it? Like, what would you do?
That's a great question. First of all, I'd ask a question back. What makes you think that you have more potential to give? What is it that you feel like there's more to offer? And really try to pick that apart in a coaching style mindset to understand, first of all, where is that person at the moment and kind of where do they want to get to? And what's the bridge that I can help coach them through in order for them to try to find the solution? So again, it kind of depends on the context, but certainly enabling others to maximize their performance through asking the right questions is kind of the way that I've always tended to go about these things.
Nick, I'm gonna jump in because I think you kind of started talking about it, and really, this is please share this most recent journey because I think it's really fascinating to hear. Our listeners want to know, one of the reasons why we ask people on is because all of the coaches that we interview are on their own journey too. They haven't fully arrived, or they're at it wherever they're at. So maybe you can tell us, what is, as of right now, what is your secret sauce? How would you describe it?
First of all, I love this question, and I know it's the basis and the emphasis for the podcast. But when I think about what my secret sauce is, for me, a secret sauce doesn't just come down to one thing. It's a multitude of various different things that make up that secret sauce. So for me, I think my secret sauce comes down to three main ingredients that go into that special sauce. The first one is personal context, and I've realised that I'm lucky in a way that I've been able to understand my own personal values and purpose, both in life and within a professional career type context. The second is more of a leadership style context, and this is something that I've been told is a natural ability to create high performance culture within a team environment. And that's something that I've always been very passionate about, is, looking at high performance teams, not just within the work environment, but when you look in the sports field as well. What is it about those teams that makes them so successful, and applying that within a work context. And then the third ingredient to my kind of secret sauce is a coaching context, and the ability really to listen, which is something that's a lot of people have said to me, both when I was going through my coaching qualification, but also in 360 reviews, which might sound strange, the ability to listen. And, most human beings have that ability to listen, but to truly listen. And there's a lovely quote, which you guys may have heard of, by a person called David Augsburger, that I found out when I was doing my coaching qualification at Henley Business School. And it goes something like, being heard is so close to being loved that for the average person, they are almost indistinguishable. And I'm going to pause there. Being heard is so close to being loved. And when you think about it, like when I first heard that, it made my hair stand up. I thought, yeah, wow. I just found that so powerful. So I guess, going back to the original question, there are three ingredients that make up my secret sauce. It's my understanding my own personal values and purpose. There's the ability to create high performance culture-based teams, and then the ability to listen.
Nick, when did you know that was your secret sauce? How did it come about?
I guess both, or all three of those have come from feedback from others. I guess it's not something that I just labeled myself. I guess over time, this comes with experience. I'm sure you guys have the same feeling, as, people give you feedback, whether it's your peers, your family, management, depending on the context that you're within. But I guess that there's two proof points that I can really pin down for all three of those. The first time I realized that I had a coaching style of leadership was when other coaches and HR facilitators commented on, how they felt that my approach to leading sales teams was very different to the standard form. The standard form, when you think of sales leaders, tends to be very dictatorial, kind of do it my way, everyone follow the leader. Whereas I'm almost the opposite. It goes back to this asking the right questions, trying to understand what are we trying to solve here, and trying to find a way collectively to build a high performance culture in order to do that. And it was actually the wonderful Helen Dan, who I know you both know, who a couple of years ago said to me, "You know what, Nick, have you ever thought about becoming an executive coach?" And at that point, I hadn't. It wasn't something that had ever crossed my mind. It's, I'm a sales director. I drive revenue. I build teams. I build high performance cultures. I'd never taken a step back to think about actually learning how to be a coach in a more formalized way, if you like. What are the more kind of formal tools that can empower me to be a better coach, both within the work context, but then also outside of work as well, and helping others. So, and a lot of my 360 reviews kind of back that up, both with it in Samsung and again when I was at Microsoft and Amazon. They all led towards this kind of coaching style of leadership. So I thought, well, this is something that I'm passionate about anyway. Why not get the formal qualification? And so that's the journey that I went on last year, and just loved it. Absolutely loved it. So that was the first proof point is feedback from others with regards to my coaching style of leadership. And then with regards to the creation of these high performance cultures within a corporate environment, I guess how I realized that was part of my secret sauce was feedback from those that I've led over the years. I feel like I've been really fortunate to have worked for the companies that I have. And each company has taught me different skills and experience that I've learned and taken away different aspects along that journey. And I guess the best way of knowing that this is clearly something that I'm passionate about and part of my secret sauce is if you go onto my LinkedIn profile and you read the 50 plus LinkedIn recommendations from people that I've led or worked with or have been customers, and you'll find that the majority will talk about the culture and how I was able to establish this culture of well-being and togetherness and focusing on how we can all raise each other's levels. Because I've always felt as a leader, especially in sales, that if you can create that type of high performance culture, just like in sports as well, then those people within the team will enjoy coming to work every day. They'll have a healthy home work life balance.
All right. So I'm going to change it up. So I noticed on your LinkedIn profile that you coach football for the ESPA juniors. And I remember myself getting a hat coaching my kids we call it soccer. But I got this hat from the parents who mostly made life difficult for me that said Coach Lipsky. And then years later, I realized it was my mission and purpose. So what did you learn from your coaching experience that you brought into coaching now?
Yeah, that's a great question. And both football or soccer for you both, and rugby as well, which I used to coach as well. It's a great question because in both contexts, and it sounds similar to yourself, Dave, it's coaching kids, which again, I needed to learn how to approach that slightly differently to a working context. Now, the reason why I say that is because there are certain things, they're small things, but they're big things that I realized that I needed to do to adapt to be able to coach children. And that was, one simple thing is like kneeling down so that I'm at their eye level when I'm talking to them. So again, it is the kind of, the coach, if you like, of the team. I'm not overpowering from a physical perspective to make everyone look up to me and go, yes sir, no sir, which I guess, is similar in a work style context. So certainly, taking a knee and speaking to them on their eye level is really important. Not talking to them as if they're kids, even though they are kids, because, kids are smart and they get that. So talking to them like adults, but in a slightly more simplistic way. So the ability to still ask them questions and for them to find the answer, which again is like, okay, well, we didn't win that game. Why do you think that was? Well, we didn't pass the ball enough. And okay, so what do you think we should practice in training on Tuesday? Passing. Yeah, exactly. Are there any drills that you've done recently that you really enjoyed? Yeah, that really fun one that you do, Nick, with da. And it's like, great, okay. So all of a sudden, the kids have created the session that we need to practice on the Tuesday night. So, they've helped form the plan for me, but they've created it. And then through doing that, when we get to the game the following weekend, they've helped create that journey for each other. And so they're all in it together, which again is, when you understand that approach and you take the time to ask the right questions and to listen to the feedback, and you empower either individuals or groups to come up with the solution, it has such a powerful effect. And I think that's the essence of coaching, is when you can do that in different environments and different walks of life. It's such a powerful thing. And it's the thing that, I love, and, it gets me out of bed every morning.
Nick, I got a question for you, because you've brought up something, and I've always in my mind have thought about sales coaching as being very behavioral and not lower in the below the waterline. And that is I'm not as attracted to just the behavioral coaching, because I feel like I'll do it if you stand in front of me, and I'll know the right things to say. And when you're around, I'll do the right thing. But the moment you leave, I'm going to do my own thing.
Yeah.
Or go back to maybe some of my. So what's the difference? Like, how do you see that in your coaching? Because you've described, like, hey, like getting to the fundamental why for those boys.
Yeah.
About, oh, okay, what happened? Like, why did that happen?
Yeah.
And not just like, because I heard you didn't say, what did you do? Right, above the waterline versus, why.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about, like, what's the difference in sales coaching? Why is so much sales coaching just behavioral versus like more, you describe yourself as a culture coach, which seems to be under the waterline.
Yeah, I guess it's fairly cookie cutter in an approach, that the behavioral side of things, and for me that's great, and it works. It works for many companies and many leaders and many sales teams. But for me, it comes back to human beings and understanding individuals' drives and motivations. And so when it comes to the behaviors that form the cultures that I've helped to create over the years, the way that I work about that is, again, more of a coaching style of leadership. And that's not for me to dictate what are those behaviors that I expect. You go on a sales course, a standard sales course, and they teach you the behaviors, now go out and do. And to your point, Matt, people can stand in front of me and say, I'm doing that and I'm going to prove to you, but then as Nick's gone, I'm going to do my own thing. Now, sales is really interesting because it's very binary. You either hit your sales targets or you don't. Now, for me, the most important thing is for those that don't hit their sales targets, it's not to call them out or have a go at them. That's the point. You need to put your arm around them and figure out, okay, well, what's the challenge here? What are you stuck with? And try to find a solution together. Because, sometimes there are things within sales that are outside of your control that you need to, support people with. So for me, creating a sense of psychological safety, especially within the sales environment, is so critical, because I've invested time and money to bring that individual into my team. So there's something about them that made me want to be part of the team in the first place. We all have ups and downs. It's my job as a leader to try to figure out what is it that's troubling this person. And sometimes it's nothing to do with work, especially kind of during COVID and post-COVID. Everyone's fighting battles that you know nothing about, and maybe they don't want to share that. But as a leader, you have to have the empathy to understand these aspects of leadership and aspects of team dynamics, to be able to come at that with a certain style that enables people to feel like, my boss, my leader, my manager has got my back. And actually, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to run through walls for them, not just for me, but for the team as well. And when you get that aspect of doing it for the team, honestly, magical things happen. And I know when it's making a difference. When I had an example fairly recently at Samsung where a high performing seller in my team gave up an account to another salesperson because they said that the other seller had more experience than he did, and that she should take it. Which, if you work in a dog eat dog cutthroat sales environment, I was like, that's when you know it's working. A seller giving up a high value account to a fellow seller because it's for the best for the team. Wow, right, this thing's working now. And so what underpins all of that, and this does come back to behaviors, but not the behaviors that I think you're talking about, Matt, from a pure how to sell approach, is the behaviors that are expected as part of the team. So when people talk about values, for me, values are really important, but what are the behaviors that make up those values? And the way that I've always gone about that is not for me to dictate that, is for the team to create that, for the team to create the behaviors that set the values of the team. And at Samson, one of the things that I did was had a kind of mini away day, put people into different groups and groups that they would not usually get to work with, again, because I wanted that diversity of thought and opinion. And I wanted everyone to write down on a bit of paper, what are the behaviors that you expect of yourself and of others in order to be successful? And then I took all of these sheets of paper, I went away, and I managed to drill them down to 3 things, which ended up becoming part of our culture within Samson Ads. And that was around hard work, humility, and harmony. So hard work was based on the behaviors of, you've got a sales goal to hit. That's the hard work element. It's kind of expected, but what do you need to do to hit that? The humility is no one person is bigger than the other. So, or more important, whether that's me, the graduates fresh out of college, doesn't matter. We treat each other exactly the same. We look after each other. And even if you bring in the biggest deal that Samson's ever seen, it doesn't matter. It takes a village to raise people, and you need to make sure that everyone on that journey, you congratulate them and thank them, and then we go again. And then the harmony piece is you have to work with other teams in order to be successful. So, don't be the lone wolf. And this was bred from the people within the team. So those 3 H's form the culture. The culture is based on a set of behaviors. Those behaviors set the values. And that's when you get people saying, high performing seller say, no, I'm going to give this to my fellow salesperson because they can do better than I can. Wow. Here we go. And that's the beauty and the essence of having a kind of coaching style of leadership.
Nick, what would you want from a coach? Like, what are some of the qualities you would want in a coach? Do you want someone with the hard work, humility, and those other things? I mean, and harmony? What do you want?
So I've got a couple of coaches myself, actually, for different aspects of my own career. But I think it comes back to that listening piece again. And I think in the world that we live in today, especially social media, everyone's got a voice, which is great. And the reason everyone's got a voice on these platforms is because they want to be heard. But everyone's kind of like talking over each other. And when you give someone the opportunity to be heard, especially in a safe environment where they feel that they can just talk to someone about whatever it is that's on their minds, and you can help that person find a solution, not by you giving it to them, a more mental style of approach, but through the coaching style of finding the solution. It's really powerful. And so certainly with the coaches that I do have in my life, it's very much about, do they have the capacity just to listen, be comfortable with silences? Again, I think that's really important. And then the third bit is around, asking the right questions. And for me, the most powerful coaches that I've had have that real unique ability to one question can just unlock so many different aspects of a problem or a challenge. And there's almost an art in that itself. And it's difficult to know whether the coach that you're going to be signing up for has that capacity. Obviously, you can have chemistry calls and try to get a sense, but certainly those are the traits that I look for.
What would you recommend? What are 3 resources that you recommend? Maybe things you got at Henley, maybe things that you're like, hey, I keep going back to this same. What are your top 3? It can be anything. It doesn't have to be a book. I'm preferential to books, but
Yeah.
What do you like? What do you recommend?
So three sources that I've got a lot of sources, and in fact, where I'm sat at the moment, I've got books all around me from all sorts of different veins of life. But I guess from a leadership and coaching perspective, specifically, um, the the book that I probably read the most and use as a resource is Coaching for Performance by Sir John Whitmore. Um, some people call it the Bible of coaching. And I would agree with that. It's kind of a timeless book that I think it's in its 6th edition now. I think they brought out a relatively new version recently, which I don't have, but I love that. I think it just breaks down the role of coaching in a really lovely way. The second one is it's a book called The Coach's Casebook by Geoff and Kim Morgan. I don't know if you've read that one, but it's a really good one. It's about the 12 traits that every coach will face at some point, and it's more of a playbook and kind of talks through different coaching scenarios. And I found that really useful. That was recommended by one of the lecturers at Henley, actually, who's also one of my supervisors, Sarah Leach, recommended it. It's brilliant. And then the third one is a podcast, but it does have an accompanying book. It's called The Coaching Crowd Podcast by Joe Wheatley and Zoe Hawkins, who
Yes.
are both based in the UK. And when I was first asked whether I would consider, having a formal coaching qualification, someone mentioned their podcast, and it was brilliant. And it really helped me understand the journey of becoming a coach, because they had both been on it, and also the book that they created.
And the third?
The third source that I would recommend is the Coaching Crowd Podcast by Joe Wheatley and Zoe Hawkins. It's a great podcast, and they have an accompanying book called Deciding to Coach. And that was a great resource when I was thinking about becoming a coach. And so I thoroughly recommend that also.
Yeah, I've watched some of their videos, listened to some of the podcasts, tons of resources on their site, and you watch their maturity in the podcasting. You can go to the very beginning and see where they are today. It is pretty phenomenal how the content that they produce is very rich.
It is.
All right, so this is a chance, Nick, for Dave and I to kind of give our thoughts. Dave, what's your insight?
Yeah, I so appreciate meeting and talking to you, Nick. Everybody in my circle of connections with Helen Dan has never disappointed. She just hangs out with cool people, and you are a cool coach. What I wanted to say is I have talked and worked with many sales leaders and sales coaches in the past, but what I really really appreciate about your approach is so much of what has been focused on in sales coaching is about the doing, and you're really going deeper about the being, about the harmony aspects and values, and how people collaborate and how people work together. And I really appreciate that, because I think that deeper level of culture of what we can create as leaders is very powerful. So I really appreciate that approach.
That's very kind of you, Dave. I appreciate that a lot.
And I think my insight, Nick, is this relationship of the quote that you talked about, just how similar it is that, like, when we truly listen to someone, we are being loving, and that leadership oftentimes is really about love, but we're afraid to call it that because that just seems so just different than what we would do in the business world. Yet that's what it should feel like, whether that's, you call it care and concern, which is how I think most business leaders can understand it. But in essence, it is really loving, because I'm going to be willing to tell you things that you may not like to hear, and also encourage you at the same time.
100%.
Yeah, really good. Nick, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you? Do you have a website? Is it LinkedIn? What's the best way?
Yeah, I'm building a website at the moment, actually. So really the best way is to go onto LinkedIn right now. And it's Nick Dewar, Nick without a C. It's a bit of a weird spelling. Thanks, Mum. um, so that's probably the best starting point if anyone would like to get in contact with me, certainly in the short term anyway.
Yeah.
I want to do a final shout out to our host. Are you feeling stuck or overwhelmed? Character Matters Coaching and Consulting provides leadership coaching and consulting to empower you to overcome obstacles and reach your full potential. Visit charactermatterscoaching.com to learn more about their transformative coaching and how to get connected to Matt for your organization. Thank you so much, Nick. Really, your mother did fabulous by just leaving out the C, because I think it's because the C is the coach, and you're it.
Nice, like it. I'm going to use that. Thanks, Dave. And thank you both as well. I've really enjoyed meeting you both, chatting with you. It's such an important area of business and life right now, and you're doing a phenomenal job of having the conversation with some really interesting people. So thank you very much for the time and inviting me on today.
Nick, this is what I would offer to you is to come back on the podcast in 1 year. Want to see your evolution in just kicking off your B2B coaching and culture. So want to just hear like your evolution from a year from now. So I'll make that offer. We haven't ever offered that to anybody, but we'd love to hear what has gone on in a year from now. And thanks so much for joining us.
Well, I'd love to. So consider it done. It'd be my pleasure.
Until next time, have a great day. Thanks for listening. If you love this podcast, please share it with another coach or leader. Make sure you go to the show notes to get all the resources from today's episode.